Well, good evening, everyone. I haven't done this in a while, but happy 2026 to all of our fans listening in. And obviously, we have a new season. And when I say new, there is a reset with respect to the formula that comes in Formula One. And we're going to discuss about that today in terms of what the reset is and what could that mean for all our various teams in play. Instead of 10 constructors that we have had historically, we're going to have 11 constructors. Who's number 11? Who's driving for them? Uh, and what does all of this mean in terms of a legacy being created this year, a continued legacy, new challengers for constructors or drivers? I'm going to have our consistent set of panelists talk about it. So, huge welcome to our panelists that we have today. And I request all of you to, as you do a round of introductions, to also highlight who your favorite team this year is. Are you sticking to the ones that you always have, or there's a change in that mix? So, in no particular order, but just going in the round from my screen. Naren, welcome back. And why don't you tell us what are you looking forward to 2026 and which team?
Thanks, Vivek, for having me. Yes, it's been a roller coaster ride from the start of the season, and I'm expecting a lot to happen this year, considering the regulation changes. I will still, it's a mixed bag for me. I will still stick with McLaren, even though Red Bull and the others have been consistently doing well. For at the moment, I think McLaren will make it this year.
So that's the papayas right up there. Next up, we have Vignesh, who has historically supported FIA.
Hi, Vivek, and thank you for bringing me back on this show. Absolutely, I used to support FIA, but then FIA stopped giving me dramas, and I would love a little bit of drama. So this year, I would love to support Forza Ferrari. Um, let's go Ferrari, and hope that okay, this time their engine and the tricks which they have come up with their how I say the DRS flap should work well.
Got it. We have a new fan base in Ferrari. And with that, I'm going to move to Satya, who had conflicted feelings for Ferrari last year. I don't know what that plays out this year.
Hey, Vivek, it's amazing to be back here and with in fact, this is a consistent panelist as well. The feeling hasn't changed. The conflict that used to be there has still kept going. We used to tease Prashant previously, but then I had to sit through it because I still support Lewis Hamilton. But Mercedes is still the brand that I would like to support as a manufacturer, while Hamilton is the driver that I want to support as one of the drivers. Ferrari did do a cool thing, which was the entire wings turned. I was like, dude, do not give me random hope by doing something cool like this.
I mean,
But
Ferrari
yeah,
has
Mercedes,
has a history of hyping themselves up and the fans' expectations at the start of the season. They're probably
and then
testing
backstabbing.
champions and then somehow lose the way after that.
Yeah, yeah.
But for all our fans viewing in and kind of confused with who are the drivers on the grid, who are the constructors, I'm just going to quickly share an image of who's on the track. And so we obviously have Oracle Red Bull Racing with Max Verstappen right there, and they have Isaac. Scuderia Ferrari with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, which Satya was just talking about. Mercedes with George Russell and Kimi. McLaren, as Naren highlighted, big support around Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Lando is obviously our champion. Aston Martin, Aramco with Fernando and Lance Stroll. Alpine with Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto. Williams with Alex and Carlos. Haas with Esteban and Oliver, so not much changing there. Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, which is a mouthful, is Liam Lawson, and they have a rookie with Arvid Lidblad. I always want to say Arvind, but it's Arvid. Uh, Audi, which is actually used to be called Sauber, so you still have Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto there, and the new players on the track as a constructor but with established players, Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. Right, so that's basically our new folks or under new colors on the track. We're going to have 11 teams, hence 22 cars on the track. That itself is new. But 2026 is a formula reset. And for all folks who are joining in new to Formula One, the reason why it's called Formula One is because there's a specific formula that teams have to follow. And it's not a simple formula that we could do in part of one chemistry lab assignment, but it's probably as big as the constitution of certain countries with the number of rules at play there, and teams have to figure out how they're going to get through. I'm going to ask our panelists what is the reset of 2026 and why is it a big deal? Maybe we can go around with each of you to understand one big change that you're sort of looking forward to in this year. And I'm going to go in the same order as we started off with the introductions. So, Naren, first up is you.
Thank you. So, of course, we used to see a lot of changes once every 10 or 12 years because of the change. And we had a lot of changes with respect to engines, with respect to technical specification. And 2026 is not specific. It has a lot of changes on its own. I would not probably go through all of the changes, but one thing that I'm looking forward to is the active arrow. The active arrow comprises of the rear wing and the front wing kind of opening when you want to use it. But the advantage and the disadvantage for the drivers inside the car is that they have to use it in a certain way where they also kind of also use their battery in an efficient way, considering the fact that the MGUH is currently gone. How in top in straight top speed car straights, how are the teams going to use that is kind of what I'm actually hoping to. One such track is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, where the top speed goes up to 330 kilometers per hour. How the overtake is going to happen, particularly in that race, is something that I would like to see. And on top of it, yes, Ferrari did bring the entire circus of the rear wing there. It's actually a nice invention, but I wanted to kind of see how it carries forward during the entire season.
Yeah, makes sense. And just to give everyone context, historically we had the DRS, which basically in those zones the back wing would sort of flap open up. Now you have the front and the back, which just adds a lot more strategy at play to what Naren was highlighting. And I think that's been a key focus for 2026 is the teams have a lot more levers to play with strategy apart from what we used to have before in terms of just pit stops, DRS strategy, and things like that. There's a lot more, but I'm going to have Vignesh come up next in terms of other things from a regulation standpoint that he's looking forward to.
So one thing which really makes Formula One a formula itself is the engines, and I would really want to see the changes which they have brought. The first thing is that okay, this time we don't have something called as an MGUH. Traditionally, engines used to have something called as an MGUK and an MGUH. The primary job of an MGUH was to spool the engines during the race starts. That's when you saw that okay, always the race leader takes the better line. But this time, considering there is no MGUH, every team is needs to find that sweet spot of spooling, and then this drastically increases the way the race starts are perceived. It's not always that okay, the pole position person will actually have a better start. Now it always depends on the intuition and the setup of the teams. That's one thing. The other thing is the battery. As said by you, Vivek, we don't have a DRS, so this time the battery pack is going to be of the utmost use. They have brought in a few modes, I believe others might talk about it, but then battery really plays a game here. If you're in a straight, you can actually deplete your battery, and then again you have another straight. Somewhere, let's speak about Monza, where you have back-to-back straights, and you have to use your battery very, very conservatively, else someone can supersede you. But everything of the engine has been changed, and it has made more simpler for newer teams to come in. That's why we see Cadillac in.
Awesome, thanks for that. So obviously the engines for everyone else who cares about the sound, nothing changes there. but obviously it's getting a lot more electrical from that perspective, and hence power management, battery intelligence is going to be a key driver in terms of how people play out with strategy. Satya, what are you looking forward to?
Vignesh, thank you for that segue because that is one of the things that I did want to mention, which was the different modes to play around with. One is the overtake mode, the other is boost mode and recovery mode. Now, the overtake previously, as we all knew, the DRS is predominantly the place where overtakes happen. There are also overtake button that they have to get an extra boot that, but again, it was near DRS zones. Now it is in such a way wherein you can go into overtake mode whenever it needed. The only thing is, once you use up the DRS mode, the battery does have to be recovered, into which you have to switch it into the recovery mode, which again is not the same since you do not have an MGUK anymore. Because sorry, MGUH anymore, because of which you can't do. Previously, you brake and that recharges the battery. That is no longer the case. So they have to handle turbo lags as well as recovery. So this is going to be pretty interesting because if you remember, not all, I mean, the MGU-H was again being supplied to all the cars. Right now, given that MGU-H is not being supplied, I believe the teams will have to come up with their own idea on how to do the recovery, which can cause a lot of chaos on track. And the other thing that I believe will cause a lot of chaos is the sustainable fuel that they want to use. They're going 100% sustainable, which I have no idea how that is going to affect these engines because to date it was a mix of gasoline and sustainable fuels. Now they are going full sustainable. I don't want to jinx it, but I think Ferrari's engines might be the first ones to crash. But or no, sorry, I forgot Honda. I mean, of course, there is Aston Martin who just teamed up with Honda. So yeah, as our famous Fernando Alonso says, this is a GP2 engine.
But yeah, no, I mean, glad you brought up the sustainable fuel point. I think Formula One has always also been sort of like at the pinnacle of engineering around the automobile industry. I know it's got more electronic than mechanical over years, but I think with the sustainable fuel, maybe there are less reasons for wars around the world, but that's a different story. But trying to keep it carbon neutral, let's see how that plays out. And I think the other thing that would love mentioning is there's also changes in the car, which means on an average, the cars are actually going to be around 30 kilograms less, which means they are going to be more nimble and faster and allow for more wheel-to-wheel racing and overtaking. And some of the other aspects that all of you already covered also enable more closer driving, less dirty air, higher probability of overtaking at multiple points versus what we have historically seen. But yeah, Naren, go ahead.
One thing to actually add is yes, the cars are lighter, but the overtaking depends on how the driver is able to effectively manage his battery.
That's true. So that's where I think there's just a lot more levers at play is probably what I'm trying to highlight with respect to opportunities for teams to come up with strategies and play around with a lot more performance parameters to kind of define whether the race is going to be successful or not, which makes it easier for maybe some of the newcomers to also be able to play around. But yeah, Satya.
In fact, this time one of the other major back backtracking is the fact that there is no more ground effects anymore. If you remember 2022-25, the major focus was ground effects, making sure that the cars can follow better, but that never materialized as such. Red Bull just for at least the first three seasons, Red Bull was like 2 minutes in front of everyone. So they are bringing back flat floors, as in there should be no effects or sculpting on the floors at all. So that would also affect if you see, a lot of the cars might go back to some of the features that they had in 21, which is you would see one was I forgot the wording of it, but there was a high rise and the low rise floors between Red
Hmm.
Bull and Mercedes. If you look at, so that is another design that might come in, because with the rotating or the active dynamics, the rear diffusers are becoming a lot more effective, need to be a lot more effective. So that is other key features that will come in. Another thing is the tires. The tires, the width is the same, but they are becoming sort of smaller. So again, the way that they will handle any curves or what is this thing? I keep forgetting.
Purposing.
Suspensions.
Okay, suspension.
Suspensions. The way they handle suspensions is again going to be a key, because I remember during one of the testing, they were again talking about the two types of joints that are there. It was either dovetail or not the dovetail, but it was the bone,
Push,
the
push, push,
push or
push
the pull.
rod
Yes.
suspension and the
So
pull rod
again, it was a
suspension.
major conversation during the testing again because of that, the new tire regulations also that have come in.
Good. So that's actually a great segue into my next area, which I wanted to understand is, so we spoke about regulations at a high level. How is that going to play a role for the current teams that we have on the track? Every time we've had this major reset, uh, most number of times the incumbent leader has generally lost way and it's provided an opportunity for someone else to come in. 2009, Ferrari was leading prior to that. It's not seen its heyday after that. Braun sort of did a surprise in 2009 and were able to do that. 2014-ish, you kind of saw Red Bull switch over to Mercedes. 2017, when the next reset sort of came in, Mercedes continued to stay dominant, though it had Ferrari and others coming close enough. And then with the next reset, Red Bull sort of came into play again, and it has its era of dominance till towards the end, McLaren sort of came back into play. So would love to hear from each one of you. What do you think 2026 is going to play for each of the constructors, and who are you keeping betting your money on? And this time let's go in the other order, and I'll ask Satya to start off first.
So one of the, I mean, in fact, Mercedes is one of the teams to look out for, because if you remember, even before testing had started, there were rumors floating around saying that Mercedes has found a loophole within the engine to test it out. And then the FIA was like, see, that's our fault. We should have considered that teams will look for loopholes. And they found a loophole, so we can't do anything. So maybe they might change the regulations for the next year, but for the current year, I believe Mercedes is one of the teams to look out for.
Got it. So Mercedes for Satya, Vignesh.
So going by the preseason testing, although the latest testing was cancelled. The Pirelli tire test was cancelled this weekend due to the global geopolitics which has been unfolding in the Middle East. But then going by the preseason testing, okay, I would say that okay, Mercedes do look as the strong favorites for this year. But then a few surprise midfielders who I want to mention. One is Haas, who have seemed to be quite dominant in the midfield session, and they seem to be giving a tough competition to the top runners. Considering we always know Haas as more of a back marker than a midfielder, that seems to be a great improvement by them. And another team which I feel that okay, they have not used their resources well is the Aston Martin, where they have the great aerodynamist Adrian Newey, who has been creating cars for Red Bull, for Ferrari, has been designing well, but they seem to be struggling quite a lot with both Stroll and Alonso complaining about the car. So these are like a few things which I see that okay, where the pack goes.
Got it. Interesting the stretch across that we have, and we might see some shuffle even in the mid range. Naren, how about you?
Like I said earlier, I am still rooting for McLaren's, but we should not deny the fact that Ferrari, especially Charles Leclerc, came as the top with a raw speed of 131. So if I have to probably group everybody in top, midfield, and the bottom, it will be Mercedes and Ferrari right at the top, McLaren, Red Bull in the middle, and Haas, Williams, and Cadillac, probably in the bottom, and finally the last would be Aston Martin, because they were really struggling during the entire testing, even the preseason testing in Barcelona, and now they were kind of they had a real tough time. So that would be my order.
Cool, thanks for that. And for folks who are joining in new to F1, while this order is kind of based on how we saw the preseason testing and some of the historical analysis people have done, teams do have an opportunity through the season to make changes, and we have seen turnarounds, especially after mid-season, but there are also breaks in between. So it doesn't mean that it's a lost cause if the teams haven't figured out the regulations and someone's figured out a loophole and are able to get through. Other teams have a chance to catch up, and we've seen that happen time and again, which is why it makes it all the more interesting and exciting from that perspective. I did have a question. Like, none of us really spent time on uh, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, right? Time and again, he has proven that no matter how the Red Bull car is, him being in it is he's been able to squeeze out the maximum iota from it. And there is a concept called sandbagging that we generally hear in the testing season. So I would love to hear from either one of you, like what does sandbagging mean? And were Red Bull, the Mercedes sort of leveraging that to their benefit or not? Satya.
So sandbagging is a fun term wherein not from Formula One. It used to come from ancient times wherein you would have a lot of sandbags in the carts, which would make them slow down. And then once you remove it all off, then you speed up. This is what used to happen in a lot of testings wherein the teams didn't want to show that they were amazing. Best examples of this is 2019 and 2018 testing for Mercedes, wherein during the testing seasons, the Mercedes, Hamilton, they used to come up only in like the thirds or the fourths, while the Ferraris and the Red Bulls used to be the ones on the top finishes. But when the first race happened, it was Mercedes 1 and 2. So that is essentially sandbagging in Formula One. And I believe Mercedes and Red Bull might actually be sandbagging. Although, if you look back, there is also the comment from Max Verstappen saying that he's not entirely happy with the way these cars drive. But yes, you are right. He is an amazing driver. As much as I don't like him, there is no denying the fact that he is an amazing top class driver who is able to bring out the maximum of the car that they have built for him. But even he is saying the current cars are not that easy to drive and that these current cars are not that fun to drive. So that is one. If he is saying it, there is a good possibility. And in fact, he and Lewis, these are the two people who are actually saying that these cars are not fun to drive. If they find it hard, then I don't know what the rest of the people are going to find.
And just for context, they're probably the drivers with the most championships amongst themselves. So for them to be
Probably
saying
they are.
this,
On the current grid, they are.
so that obviously means it's going to be a huge challenge getting into these, which obviously adds to the mix of the excitement and the uncertainty of how everyone's going to play out. Having said that, we have the Australian Grand Prix kicking off next week, which will kick off the season with the final race obviously being on International Women's Day. Uh, it has been confirmed that it is on. Logistics are being rerouted. A lot of the equipment has already officially reached Australia. So it's primarily from a driver's and the staff standpoint, and they're figuring out rerouting routes to make sure it happens on track. So your initial races in Asia are on track, and they're keeping an eye out for how the situation develops before a call is taken on the Bahrain and the Saudi leg, which would happen in the Middle East in around the April timeframe. So keeping that in mind, would love to hear from each of you. I have a quick fire round for all of you. Uh, to kind of, I need all of you to unmute yourself and quickly give me the answers. We're going to go in the round of Satya Vignesh Naren, with some of the questions that I have. Starting off with winner of the Australian Grand Prix.
Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton,
Russell.
Russell,
Charles.
Charles Leclerc. A good mix. This is recorded, so it's going
Ferrari
to stay
people.
there till we see the results. Uh, Constructors that you think are going to have the most DNFs this season?
Ferrari.
Ferrari?
No, sorry, can I change? No, I can't change.
Okay,
Aston Martin.
Cadillac is what I'm gonna go for.
okay. Cadillac, Aston Martin,
I will still go with Aston Martin, considering how they performed. So Aston Martin it is.
and I think I'll just add Ferrari because Satya said so.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Most unlucky driver do you think this year? Could be because of DNFs, could be because of strategy.
I think it will be Audi. Oh, so within Audi, Nick Hulkenberg.
Okay.
Sergio Perez.
I'll take Kimi Antonelli because he had problems with his preseason testing.
I was going to say Lewis Hamilton. And that's probably going to be more Ferrari strategy than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Most unlikely podium finish in the first half of the season.
Bottas.
Valtteri Bottas.
Mhm.
I've I have two picks. One, of course, is from Cadillac. That's Perez. The other is Oliver Baban from Haas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm again going to go with Lewis Hamilton.
Why?
But yeah, with that, I think we have an exciting year lined up. Uh, a mix for all the constructors as they figure out, uh, one is reliability, speed, strategy. A lot of things are going to come into play as the first few races, people settle in and figure out from a race pace standpoint, you could do whatever you have done in testing. Ferrari has shown that time and again that they crack the testing and then it's downhill from there. So there's still a lot to play out for all the teams as we get into the season. As you heard from our panelist, there is a mix of opinions as each one thinks there is a different player who's going to come out all tops. We are going to cover the entire season and provide you our insights on everything F1. So feel free, as always, like, share, subscribe, put in your comments, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or any other channel that you're listening in on. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you want us to talk about so that we can share more insights for folks who have been listening in for all these years, are hardcore F1 fans, or coming new into the space and wants to understand in a quick crash course all things F1 so they can sound smart when they talk to their other friends. Thanks once again to all our panelists for joining in on a new season of
Racing hearts and burning tires, paddock talk, it's full of fires, thundering past the checkered lines, stories told in sharp decline. Toast the torque and feel the speed, fans unite for this high-speed creed. On and off the track taste a cherished win.